Now to the mixed messages on the inoculation that stopped more than 15,000 cases of paralysis a year in the 1950s, according to CDC estimates. We're talking about the polio vaccine, which President-elect Trump has praised as the, quote, greatest thing. His pick for Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, is back up on Capitol Hill today trying to shore up support for his confirmation. And yesterday he echoed Trump's approval for the polio vaccine.
You're not going to lose the polio vaccine. That's not going to happen. I saw what happened with the polio. I have friends that were very much affected by that. I have friends from many years ago, and they have obviously they're still in not such good shape because of it. You know, that was, and many people died. And the moment they took that vaccine, it ended. Dr. Jonas Salk did a great job.
Should the polio vaccine be revoked?
We're worried you're going to take away their vaccine.
Should the polio vaccine be revoked?
Kennedy saying there that he was, quote, all for the polio vaccine, but his lawyer and his top ally, Aaron Siri, recently petitioned the FDA to pull its approval of the vaccine in 2022. And while President-elect Trump seemed all in on the polio vaccine, listen closely to what else he said about vaccines.
Do you believe there's a connection between vaccines and autism? Do you believe there's a link?
Well, I don't look. Right now, you have some very brilliant people looking at it. If you look at autism, so 30 years ago, I've heard numbers of like 1 in 200,000, 1 in 100,000. And now I'm hearing numbers of 1 in 100. So something's wrong.
Do you think schools should mandate vaccines?
I don't like mandates. I'm not a big mandate person.
And joining us now is Dr. Peter Salk, whose father you heard the president-elect mention, Jonas Salk. He invented the initial polio vaccine. Dr. Salk is also the president of the Jonas Salk Legacy Foundation. He's a professor of infectious diseases and microbiology at the University of Pittsburgh School of Public Health. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today at such a critical time. What are your thoughts as you're hearing what the president-elect and RFK Jr. are saying about praising the polio vaccine, but also what they're saying about and have said about vaccines more broadly?
Yeah, I'm so relieved to hear that both the president and RFK Jr. are being supportive of the polio vaccine. It has done such a wonderful job, along with the other vaccine that came along afterwards, in ridding the world almost completely from polio at this point. The injected vaccine that my father and his team at the University of Pittsburgh developed is extremely safe. Very rarely would someone have an allergic reaction to it. So this, I think, is absolutely the correct decision. What their concern was that in more recent years, an enhanced potency version of that vaccine was made, and that's just more effective. I think their concern was perhaps it was more dangerous, but there's been no evidence of that.
How effective would your father's vaccine, the polio vaccine, be if it were not mandated?
Well, anyone who is immunized with that vaccine, almost every single person, will end up being protected themselves against developing polio, because it blocks the ability of the virus to travel to the brain and the spinal cord and cause paralysis. But there's also an issue of spreading virus from one person to another who have not been immunized. The more people that are immunized, the better the protection will be against other people getting infected. Now, in this country, at this point, there's very little likelihood of the polio virus being transmitted. In 2022, a case was brought over from overseas and into a community where the polio vaccination rates were much lower than they should be. I would urge everyone to have their children vaccinated not only against the polio, but also against the other diseases of childhood and other diseases that cause them to be at risk of damage in their own lives, not only for themselves, for yourself, of course, but also to help protect others around you.
What do you say to parents, to families out there who are concerned that there is a link between vaccines and autism, which has been disproven, but certainly has been perpetuated by some high-profile names, including the potential incoming HHS secretary? What do you say to families as they're weighing what they may think are risks to these vaccines that don't exist with the benefits?
Yeah. In the case of autism, it's absolutely clear from the studies that have been done that vaccines are not a cause of autism. Autism begins in the womb before a child is ever immunized against anything. So this is just, what happens is that people receive vaccines during childhood, and then at some point, if a child is predestined to get autism, it will come at some point in relationship to anything that would happen before that, including a vaccine that might accidentally be close to it. There's not a cause and effect relationship. One can relax about that. But what I would say is this: in medications, including vaccines, can have side effects of one sort or another. What's important is to study them carefully and to understand what the circumstances are. If there are concerns about one thing or another, we can take autism off of the list. But if there are concerns, then people should get together, address the issues as concisely as possible, have studies done. Studies have been done already. So if people are concerned, we have to respect that concern. But I can say, as far as autism is concerned, that is just not something that one has to worry about with respect to vaccines.
It's important to hear that from you. I think it's so interesting for people to know, and they likely do not, that you were among the first to get the polio vaccination. Your father gave it to you along with your siblings, which speaks to the confidence that he had in it and just how important he thought it was for you guys to have that. Can you tell us, what you remember about that moment, what your siblings remembered about that moment, and what you think your father would make of today's debate over his creation?
Yeah, I remember that moment very well. My father brought the experimental vaccine home, boiled the needles and syringes on the stove to sterilize them, lined us up. And the reason I remember that day so clearly is because I hated vaccine. I hated needles. And for some blessed reason, the needle just did not hurt that day, which just seared that moment into my memory. And the other question you asked,
what he would think of sort of the debate, especially considering how people would have welcomed this chance to be free of polio during his time.
Oh, yeah. Listen, the country, the world was terrified of polio. The epidemics were getting worse and worse. Children were being paralyzed. Many put in iron lungs, not being able to breathe. Many died. This was something that everyone was terrified about. The National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis, created by Franklin Roosevelt, with a fundraising arm, the March of Dimes, raised the money for all of the studies to create vaccines against polio and to help care for patients. It was the people of this country who, one by one, dime by dime, dollar by dollar, provided the funds for the research program that created the polio vaccine. This was not, at that point, government funded. This was the people, and it was the people's victory over this disease. So everyone was behind it, and when the vaccine was found to be effective in a huge national field trial, a wave of relief swept the country. Nowadays, we're just not faced with polio, certainly, and other childhood illnesses, and that because of vaccines. And so parents aren't used to thinking, oh, we're seeing all of this disease around us. But it's very important to keep up immunization, to protect your children in the future, and to protect the community. So that's what I would have to say is get on board with vaccines. They're really important. They've saved countless numbers of lives. This is something that we want to continue into the future.
Yeah, hard to imagine the world without them. Dr. Salk, we
Amen.
appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Brianna, thank you. It's a pleasure talking with you.